The storm rolled across the plains like a wounded beast, growling and howling through the night as rain lashed against the weathered boards of Jake Callahan's barn. He was used to nights like this, alone with the sound of thunder, the soft nickering of his horses and the distant memories of a life that had once meant more than just surviving. He had lost too much, his family ranch nearly gone, his heart even more so, and the only thing that kept him moving was the quiet work that filled his hands. But that night, just before midnight, when lightning tore across the sky and painted the land in silver light, he saw her, a figure stumbling through the rain, soaked to the bone, clutching something against her chest. She barely made it to his barn door before collapsing onto the muddy ground, the storm swallowing her last cry. Jake froze for half a heartbeat, disbelief flashing through him. Then instinct took over. He sprinted out into the rain, scooping her up in his arms. She was cold, too cold, and her pulse fluttered weakly against his fingertips. Her clothes were torn, her face pale beneath streaks of rain and dirt. "Hang on, darlin'," he muttered, pushing the barn doors open with his shoulder and carrying her inside where the lantern light flickered against the wooden beams. He laid her gently on a bed of hay, covering her with his old wool coat, his breath catching as he saw a bruise along her temple. She looked fragile, like she'd been running from something fierce. He set a pot of water on the small stove in the corner and stoked the fire, keeping his eyes on her the whole time, wondering who she was and what kind of trouble had chased her to his doorstep. The storm outside didn't let up, and the minutes turned into hours. Jake wiped the mud from her face, noticing the faint traces of beauty beneath the grime, the soft curve of her lips, the fire in her features even in rest. When she finally stirred, her voice was a whisper. "Where am I?" "Safe," Jake said, his voice low, rough from disuse. "You're at my ranch. You collapsed outside my barn." She blinked, her gaze meeting his. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know where else to go." Her words trembled like the rest of her. Jake handed her a canteen of water, his large hand steady as he watched her drink. "You got nothing to apologize for. Folks don't just end up out here in a storm like this for no reason." She hesitated, glancing toward the barn door as if she still feared it might burst open. "I was running," she said finally, "from a man who thought he could own me." Jake's jaw tightened. He didn't ask for details. He'd seen enough of the world to understand what that meant. Instead, he pulled the blanket higher around her shoulders and said softly, "Well, he ain't getting near you tonight." The night grew quieter as the rain eased. Jake sat beside her, his hat resting on his knee, eyes fixed on the fire. He could have left her to rest, but something in her presence anchored him there. Maybe it was the way she shivered even in sleep. Or maybe it was the reminder of how long it had been since he'd had someone to protect. He'd built walls around himself thicker than the barn's timber. And yet this stranger had walked right through them, collapsing into his life without warning. Around 3 a.m., she woke again, her voice hoarse. "You should sleep," she whispered. "You've done enough." Jake smiled faintly, shaking his head. "I'll rest when the sun's up. Till then, I'll keep the fire going. Ain't no sense in letting the cold win tonight." Her eyes softened, something unspoken passing between them. Gratitude, maybe, or trust. The kind that's rare and delicate, formed not by words but by presence. As dawn crept across the horizon, painting the barn in hues of gold and rose, she finally smiled. A small, tired thing, but real. Jake was sitting beside her still, one arm draped across his knee, head tilted as he watched the light crawl in. "You stayed," she said quietly, as though the realization surprised her. "Told you I would," he replied. "Storm's done now, but I reckon you're not quite ready to face the world yet. You can rest here a while." She looked around, her gaze catching the horses, the tools, the life of a man who lived simply but fully. "You don't even know my name." "Don't need to," Jake said. "Not yet." Something in his tone made her heart twist, a strange mixture of safety and sorrow, of kindness worn rough by years of silence. For the first time in months, she didn't feel hunted. She didn't feel small. She just felt seen. The sun rose higher, spilling light through the barn doors, touching her face with warmth. Jake stood and offered her a hand. "Come on," he said. "There's coffee inside and a blanket that ain't scratchy as that one." She took it, her fingers trembling as his calloused hand closed around hers. And for the first time, she didn't flinch at a man's touch. That morning began something neither of them expected. It wasn't love yet, not quite, but it was the kind of connection born in silence in the moments between storms. The kind that makes a lonely man hope again, and a broken woman believed that maybe, just maybe, kindness still exists in the world. She didn't know if she'd stay, and he didn't dare ask her to. But as the light spilled over them and the chill faded, one thing was certain. Neither of them would ever forget the night she collapsed outside his barn door, and the cowboy who carried her in and stayed beside her till dawn. If you felt the warmth of this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps these cowboy love tales alive. Saddle up for more heartfelt Western stories, where love rides through storms and hearts find home again.